And today on Historical Recreations, we'll be able to make one of these, a skeleton diorama. You can actually see the bones underground. Join me. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another gothful and wonderful episode of Historical Recreations. Today we'll be putting a skeleton inside of his own private coffin and putting him in a cemetery where you can view his body from the side. Now, your lineup for the materials that you will need for this tutorial are as such. One of these boxes is very important for display. Now, you can get these boxes at any dollar store, and they usually are something that you would put figurines in. This one just so happens to be for like Disney characters. You will also need one of these. It is a miniature skeleton of your choice. These usually pop up around Halloween time and are mostly prevalent at, I would say, dollar stores. And if you can't find one there, you can probably get them at Amazon, Hobby Lobby, or Michael's Crafts. You will also need some of these little diorama trees, which is also in supply shops that sell trains, HO size train materials, and the grass came with it from the same shop. You'll need some carving tools. Here is a children's carving knife, and I'll explain what this is for, and then also an etcho blade. You'll be needing a block of floral foam. This is our soil for our project today. The three colors of choice I'm using are a black number 999, a titanium white number 901, and my favorite of all colors, burnt umber number 925. I also purchased a little bit more green to put in our diorama just in case we wanted to add something more on the surface. And to create our tombstones, you'll be needing some air dried clay. Any color will do. Anything else is in the tutorial. Let's do this. Our first line of business today is to get rid of this, as it was a part of a garland there. We want to remove the little O-ring, and it's coming back to join me. And then we're going to be applying a coat of white titanium number 901 onto our little skeleton. Make sure to put the cap back on here. And then we're going to age this down. The first thing we want to do, we want to get rid of this silver that's on here and bring the skeleton back to its bone color. So let me finish the whole entire skeleton, and then I'll show you what it's going to look like when we're finished. Once your skeleton is dry, we're going to be using our burnt umber number 925, and I have some water out here on my palette. I may wet in my large watercolor brush over here to create a slurry. Now, we don't want this slurry to be very strong because we want the skeleton color to come through. We just want to age the first layer of bone. Since our tiny little friend has been stained and aged, we're going to build his casket today. So let me demonstrate what we're going to be using. Today we're going to be using nothing more than recycled styrofoam dishes, and I'm quite sure you can find plenty of these in the trash bin. Okay, let's go. First element is you're going to need a permanent magic marker and also an etcho blade knife. Now be very careful because etcho blade knives are very sharp. All we want to do, and if you've seen my tutorial on how I made the Victorian children's casket and how I just etched it out like this is all you need to do, is rough out the shape and the size of our little skeleton. Going back to it, if you've seen my tutorial on how I made the Victorian children's size casket, you'll know I made it just like this. I put the skeleton down and I roughed it out. Okay, let's cut this out and then create two of them. Cut out the first one. Trace the second one. And lastly, I have cut out a side strip. Now, this does not have to be absolutely perfect. Actually, in fact, I've often told my students that work with me, when making something old make it kind of junky. The reason is that it creates that kind of energy that it is old, it's dilapidated, it's falling apart. If you make something look absolutely perfect all the time, it looks too modern. So now that we have eyeballed and created a casket here, we can now hot glue our elements together. Here are the foot and headboards. Here is the top piece that will go over our skeleton and the sideboard. Now we only need these 5 pieces because we're going to be viewing the skeleton from one side as it's exposed in our diorama. Okay, let's get our hot glue gun out and glue this together. And today's choice of colors for painting the casket is a black number 999 acrylic, a burnt umber number 925, and I'm also using an alpha number 791 pastel sand color to create the rot and the dust and that look of age. Now comes the part that I want to start creating the little casket in the appropriate colors. Today I'm using my favorite color, the burnt umber number 925. I'm also mixing in a pastel sand number 971, and we're going to mix this up. We're going to do not only the cover but all the interior. And then I also wanted to demonstrate that our little skeleton is going to be hot glued in at a 45-degree angle like this, not laying flat, but we really want people to see all of his bones and everything. So when he's inside of our coffin, he won't be laying flat, he'll be laying slightly like that, and it's going to look really cool for our diorama. Onto that, let's mix up this paint and paint down our casket. And see how I'm just doing it in pieces, dry brushing, leaving a lot of information. Make a little bit there. I want all of that information to come through. And there it is. It came out really, really nice. We're going to let this dry and we're going to add an aging wash of black over this now. I got my large brush over here and my water. Now all of these details are very important in prop making, and the reason is the layers and layers of information that you add to your props really matter. The first things we want to do is we want to figure out how deep we want to have our coffin, and I would say midway. We want it kind of in the center, so we're going to mark it off, and then we're going to cut off this part here and then cut out the midsection and then slide him in there. So let's trace out the size of the coffin on our foam block. That was quite easy to do, and the other thing we want to do is we want to cut this piece off completely as a lid, so it makes it easier for us to get in there. So let's now cut this section out and be able to bury him. And this is what it would look like right about now. So we actually have the coffin placed in there just like this. So it's kind of sitting on a couch of foam, and then we have our tops. Now all we just need to do is hot glue all of this back in place and fill in any gaps that we may have that we need to fill in. So let's do that. And there he is. Our little friend is underground, displayed so nicely. The next part is we get to fill this in. We're going to use a little bit of white glue, and then we're also going to paint this foam a number 925 burnt umber, and then a very special surprise. We are going to add a coating of artificial soil. Artificial soil? How do you make that? Well, I'm going to share with you a very special prop maker's surprise. Artificial soil. Artificial soil? How did you make that, Professor M? Tea. Do you drink tea? Of course, we all drink tea. Now, how to create artificial soil is very easy. Drink your tea and then squeeze out the tea bag. Layer the tea leaves here to dry. You can see I have some that are still drying and some that is dried. Once your tea leaves are completely dried, you can use it now for anything that needs artificial soil in your diorama or dollhouse garden or any type of train set or landscape thing that you're working on. One of the trade maker's secrets of prop making today. All right, let's go on. I'm just applying the paint right to the surface. Now, the very important thing when you're working with floral foam, it is a very absorbent material. So you want to layer your acrylic paints on heavy and make sure that you're very neat and clean around all of the edges and making sure that we don't get our casket painted up, because we'd have to fix that if we did. But layer this on nicely. As you can see, I'm using a square brush. I'm using a 1/2 inch brush here, and just paint this up very, very nicely. Now, you don't have to do the top part because we're going to be laying grass on there, so unless you really want to. But right now, just layer up this really great color on here. Burnt umber is my absolute favorite color of all the prop makers colors in my collection, and I have a lot of colors. Okay, so let me finish this and I'll show you what it looks like. Now, once your artificial soil is dry, it's going to look like this, and it makes it look like it's a big piece of chocolate cake. Ah, I just want to take a bite of it, but right at the moment we can't because it's soil. Anyways, here is our next element. We're going to need a pair of scissors and some of this artificial grass, which is going to be so beautiful, and we're going to put this on top of here with some white glue. And then also we have a few of the things we want to do. We want to add some other elements to the grass, plus build our tombstone. All that today. Let's go. So now our little fella's in the ground. We've got the top on here. Now I found out something quite amazing. After I put the glass on, I had discovered it was too tall. So we are going to have to do the most amazing thing as a prop maker, and all prop makers go through this. It's adjustment. We are going to build a casing around the base of our frame here. Clean up these little particles because they look like chocolate, and we're going to raise this up so we can put our tombstone in up here. Didn't that grass come out really cool? I know you just want to pet that, don't you? Okay, so let's now build a base and raise this up so we can look into it. Now a little bit of advanced magic today in prop making. After building the retainance wall, which only took a few minutes, as you can see, I used this soft sea sponge, dipped it in a gray acrylic paint that I made up using a titanium white number 901 and an alpha black number 999, and sponged it on there. The faux finish now looks like stone. Next comes a very important part of our tutorial, is the creation of our little tiny tombstone here. Now if you're wondering how I had made this, I used some air dry clay. The brand is called Amos. Very soft. Look at this, is better than bubble gum. And you can do anything with this. So what I did was did a low and flat tombstone and I let it dry for 24 hours. I put the typeface in there using a bent pair of tweezers, just tapping it in there, and to pat it into shape. Boom, just like that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to age this down. And I just took it off the piece of paper. We're going to be painting up our little tombstone today. I'm using an acrylic number 999 black and also a 901 titanium. Just mixing this in. I'm going to show you how we're going to do this down. Going into our white, which is a tiny bit of black over here, and we're going to be creating up a granite color. And I also have my water nearby. As you can see, I'm cross-hatching that color right in there to the approximate color that I'd like it to be. And I think we are almost there. Alright, now I'm really liking that color. Adding my water, and let's do a wash down here. And I even put, I put the date on the back of the stone when he had perished. Washing this over. Now you can just wash over the stone. This is coat number 1. Okay, after we do this, we're going to add an aging to this, but it's very important to do the wash down first. This has come out really good. Oh, fall over. Okay, and we're going to let this dry. We're going to let our tombstone dry, and then once we let it dry, we're going to do an aging. Right. Okay. Looking good. And now let's do up an aging wash. Look how beautiful that stone came out, huh? But wait till you put the wash on here. I'm going to show you what we're going to do. This is just a touch of black acrylic number 999. Just a dot of it. Oh, put some more out there. There you go. And we're going to wash this down. And the reason why I'm doing it on the paper and not on a plastic dish is because I want that water to be absorbed. So I get a nice ratio. We're just going to apply that on there. And once we apply this coat on there, all of that detail is going to come right out. It's going to age that stone beautifully. All the detail, all the wording, everything. Okay. You can see how well this is looking already. Just apply it on there and let it dry. And we are now in the final stretch of our project. I found this little teeny tiny HO tree from a railroad set, and I'm going to be using some of this to put around our tombstone here. The tombstone came out beautiful. It aged so nicely. And I also found this from the earlier part of when I started this project. I had put this aside and actually lost the bag, and now I had found it again. So this will be incorporated because I love that this looks like little tiny I don't know what you're going to plant-like leaves or fern leaves or something. So I'm going to cut those off and apply it and then build. So we're going to be putting our stone up here today on our project, and then putting our greenery around there, and the final thing is putting on our glass. So let's do all that now. My hot glue is heating up. So now let's look at this view. Check it out. We've got our tombstone right where it wants to be. We've got this lush lawn. We've got plants growing up, forgotten tombstone, and our little friend down below. Last thing to do now is put on our glass. And this is one of the most unique and actually quite interesting dioramas that I have ever made.